J. So today we are reading from Canto 3, Chapter 21, Text 32. Canto 3, Chapter 21, Text 32. And the text 32 says, Sahahum Swamsakalaya Tvad Viryena Mahamune Tavachetre Devahutyam Pranesye Tattva Samhitam. Translation by His Divine Grace, Sri Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. O great sage, I shall manifest my own plenary portion through your wife, Devahuti, along with your 9 daughters, and I shall instruct her in a system of philosophy that deals with the ultimate principles or categories. And the purport says the following. Herein, the word Swamsa Kalaya indicates that the Lord would appear as the son of Devahuti and Kardama Muni as the Pila Deva, the first propounder of the Sankhya philosophy, which is mentioned here as Tattva Samhita. The Lord foretold to Kardama Muni that he would appear in his incarnation, Kapila Deva, and would propagate the philosophy of Sankhya. Sankhya philosophy is very well known in the world, as was propagated by another Kapila Deva. But that Sankhya philosophy is different from the Sankhya which was propounded by the Lord himself. There are 2 kinds of Sankhya philosophy. One is godless Sankhya philosophy, and the other is godly Sankhya philosophy. The Sankhya propagated by Kapila Deva, son of Devahuti, is godly philosophy. There are different manifestations of the Lord. He is one, but he has become many. He divides himself into 2 different expansions, one called Kala and the other Vipinamsa. Ordinary living entities are called Vipinamsa expansions, and the unlimited expansions of Vishnu Tattva, such as Vamana, Govinda, Narayana, Pradumna, Vasudeva, and Ananta are called Svamsa Kala. Svamsa refers to a direct expansion, and Kala denotes an expansion from the and Bala is an expression of Krishna. Let's wait a minute. Let's start all over again. Ordinary living entities are called Vipinamsa expansions, and the unlimited expansions of Vishnu Tattva, such as Vamana, Govinda, Narayana, Pradumna, Vasudeva, and Ananta, are called Svamsa Kala. Svamsa refers to a direct expansion, and Kala denotes an expansion from the expansion of the original Lord. Baladeva is an expansion of Krishna, and from Baladeva, the next expansion is Sankarsana. Thus, Sankarsana is Kala, but Baladeva is Svamsa. There is no difference, however, among them. This is very nicely explained in the Brahma Samhita 546. Viparchir evahita santaram abhupetya. With 1 candle, one may light a 2nd candle. With the second and 3rd, and then 4th, and in this way, one can light up thousands of candles. And no candle is inferior to another in distributing light. Every candle has the full potential of candle power, but there is still the distinction that 1 candle is the first, and another the second, another the third, and another the 4th. Similarly, there is no difference between the immediate expansion of the Lord and its secondary expansion. The Lord's names are considered in exactly the same way. Since the Lord is absolute, his name, his fame, his name, his form, his pastimes, his paraphernalia, and his quality all have the same potency. In the absolute world, the name Krishna is the transcendental sound representation of the Lord. There is no potential difference between its quality, name, form, etc. If we chant the name of the Lord, Hare Krishna, that has as much potency as the Lord himself. There is no potential difference between the form of the Lord whom we worship and the form of the Lord in the temple. One should not think that one is worshiping a doll or statue of the Lord, even if others consider it to be a statue, because there is not potential difference. One gets the same result by worshiping the statue of the Lord or the Lord himself. This is the science of Krishna consciousness. Okay, so this purport is explaining in detail uh, that there's no difference between Krishna and the deity of Krishna. And that's why it says one should not think that one is worshiping a doll or statue of the Lord, even if others consider it to be a statue, because there is not potential difference. One gets the same result by worshiping the statue of the Lord or the Lord himself. This is the science of Krishna consciousness. Well, obviously, Krishna can expand himself infinitely in different forms also. So we have to hear the explanation of the glories of Krishna. Krishna is not an ordinary person. He's not subject to the laws of material nature, and he's not controlled by the modes of material nature. He's a transcendental person, although he seems to be sometimes an ordinary person, but he's not. And eventually, people will see the transcendental activities of Krishna and understand that although he may look like an ordinary child or an ordinary, let's say, adult human being, he isn't. He has supernatural powers, and he will reveal these to devotees. But the non-devotees, they cannot understand. Why? Because they're engaged in sense gratification. When one gives up sense gratification, their ability to understand things improves. Understand what things? Spiritual things improves. And they're no longer, let's say, blinded by the modes of material nature, goodness, passion, and ignorance. They rise above the ignorance of material nature and they come to the platform of Krishna consciousness. Okay, so here in this purport it says that departured eva he desantaram abhupatya. With one candle, one may light a second candle, and the second, a third, and then a fourth. And in this way, one can light up thousands of candles. And no candle is inferior to another in distributing light. Every candle has the full potential candle power. But there is still the distinction that one candle is the first, another the second, another the third, and another the fourth. Similarly, there is no difference between the immediate expansion of the Lord and a secondary expansion. The Lord's names are considered in exactly the same way. Since the Lord is absolute, his name, his form, his pastimes, his paraphernalia, and his quality all have the same potency. In the absolute world, the name Krishna is the transcendental sound representation of the Lord. There is no potential difference between his quality, name, form, etc. If we chant the name of the Lord, Hare Krishna, that has as much potency as the Lord himself. There is no potential difference between the form of the Lord whom we worship and the form of the Lord in the temple. One should not think that one is worshiping a doll or statue of the Lord, even if others consider it to be a statue, because there is not potential difference. One gets the same result by worshiping the statue of the Lord or the Lord himself. This is the science of Krishna consciousness. Now, let's ask the question, what is meant by science? Let's look up the definition of science. We usually consider the word science to mean something that is truthful, that is an explanation of things that exist, the correct the definition of things that exist, as opposed to there's science and then there is what you call what you would call whatever is non-science or what's the name of that? That would be something like a something that is made up or something that is imagined as opposed to something that is real. So, but it's very easy to get things mixed. Therefore,
Fiction. Fiction.
is there a question? Yeah. Therefore, it says, departure evahi dasantaram abhyupetya. With one candle, one may light a second candle. With the second candle, with the second, a third, and then a fourth. And in this way, one can light up thousands of candles. And no candle is inferior to another in distributing light. Okay, so
you talked about pseudoscience. Is that what you were saying?
Yeah.
Non-science.
Yeah. Yes. So science, well, let's look up the dictionary meaning of science. It's something that is factual and can be verified. Like, for example, if there is scientific proof of something in Japan, the same thing can be, let's say, experimented in the United States, and the same result will happen. So therefore, it's science. But if something happens in Japan and there's an experiment, the same experiment takes place in the United States, but they get a different result in the United States, it's not science. Science, it's going to mean something that is predictable. So what does it say?
Science is a systematic enterprise that builds and organizes knowledge in the form of testable explanations and predictions about the universe.
Yes, it's predictable. And it's predictable everywhere, not just in one place.
It involves the observation, identification, description, experimental investigation, and theoretical explanation of natural phenomena. Science relies on empirical evidence and follows the scientific method, which includes forming hypotheses, conducting experiments, collecting data, and drawing conclusions.
Correct. It's predictable. That's the main word. In other words, if you do an experiment in the United States and get a result, you should be able to do the same experiment, let's say in Japan or Russia, and get the same result. But if you get one result in the United States and a different result in Russia, then it would not be actual science. It's something that's predictable everywhere. Like, for example, Krishna appears uh, in uh, in the United States. Well, he can appear also in Russia. He can appear also in England. It's the same Krishna. Then it is science. Uh, so here it says that uh, there are different manifestations of the Lord. He is one, but he has become many. He divides himself into two different expansions, one called Kala and the other Vibhinamsa. Ordinary living entities are called Vibhinamsa expansions, and the unlimited expansions of Vishnu Tattva, such as Vamana, Govinda, Narayana, Pradyumna, Vasudeva, and Ananta, are called Swamsa, Kala. Swamsa refers to a direct expansion, and Kala denotes an expansion from the expansion of the original Lord. Baladeva is an expansion of Krishna, and from Baladeva, the next expansion is Sankarsana. Thus, Sankarsana is Kala, but Baladeva is Swamsa. There's no difference, however, among them. This is very nicely explained in the Brahma Samhita. Departure eva hi dasantaram abhyupetya. With one candle, one may light a second candle. With the second, a third, and then a fourth. And in this way, one can light up thousands of candles, and no candle is inferior to another in distributing light. Okay, so this is the ability of Krishna to expand himself infinitely without diminishing his potency. And this is a unique thing about Krishna. Ordinary human beings can't do this, but Krishna can. He can expand himself infinitely. And each expansion is equally potent as the previous. This is something that's difficult to realize by mundane people. Why? It's because mundane people always try to understand things in terms of their own abilities. Well, you can't, a mundane person can't multiply himself infinitely. So, therefore, if he tries to understand things in terms of his own material, let's say, abilities, he'll never really understand spiritual reality. So this is like the frog in the well. The frog in the well was told by another frog who had left the well and explored the world and went and saw that there's an ocean. So when the frog that explored the world came back, he told the frog in the world that there are bigger, let's say, expansions of water like oceans. They're much, much bigger than the water in the well. And the frog in the well tried to understand this in terms of the well and not in terms of the outside reality. And therefore, he tried puffing up his body. He kept saying, "Is it as big as this? Is it as big as this? Is it as big as this?" And eventually exploded and died. That's more or less what the scientists are doing. They try to understand things in terms of their own limitations. And obviously, it's going to be wrong. So, like for example, they they will say that uh, even if they go to the moon, they'll say there are no living entities on the moon. There are only living entities on the Earth. Well, first of all, they haven't gone to the moon, but they think that there's no living entities on the moon. Uh, and oftentimes they come to the conclusion there are only living entities on the Earth. Or if there are living entities on other planets, they're inferior to the human beings that are on the Earth. So obviously, they can't really say that because they haven't really gone to any other planets so that they could verify if there are living entities there or not. And even if they do go to other planets, it is possible that the bodies of the living entities on those other planets are very different than the bodies on the Earth. The bodies of living entities on the moon, the main material elements of those bodies is the mind. So even if you go there, you wouldn't be able to see the living entities there because their bodies are made differently than our bodies on the Earth. Our body is made up mostly of water and uh, earth. So, but the bodies of the persons on the moon are made mostly of subtle elements like mind and intelligence. So, even if we go to the moon, we would not be able to see the living entities there because the main elements of their body are different than the elements. When I say different, uh, in the sense that the main elements of their bodies are subtle elements like mind, intelligence, and the main elements of the bodies on the earth are like water and earth, and a little bit of other things like mind and intelligence. So we have gross elements and subtle elements. So on the moon, the main elements of the moon people are subtle elements. And on the earth, the main elements of the earth people bodies are gross elements like earth, water, fire, air, ether, but mainly earth and water. When you get to the moon, there are subtle elements like mind, intelligence. Uh, okay, so uh, therefore it says uh, there are different manifestations of the Lord. He is one, but he has become many. He divides himself into two different expansions. One is called Kala and the other Vibhinansa. Ordinary living entities are called Vibhinansa expansion. And the unlimited expansions of Vishnu Tattva, such as Vamana, Govinda, Narayana, Pradyumna, Vasudeva, and Ananta, are called Swamsa Kala. Swamsa refers to a direct expansion, and Kala denotes an expansion from the expansion of the original Lord. Baladeva is an expansion of Krishna, and from Baladeva, the next expansion is Sankarshan. Thus, Sankarshan is Kala, but Baladeva is Swamsa. There's no difference, however, among them. Okay, what does that mean? That means that each expansion has the same powers. They might look different, but they have the same powers. And this is explained in the Brahma Samhita, 5th chapter, 46th verse, Departure eva hi dasantaram abhyapetya. With one candle, one may light a second candle, with a second, a third, and then a fourth. And in this way, one can light up thousands of candles, and no candle is inferior to another in distributing light. Every candle has the full potential candle power, but there is still the distinction that one candle is the first, and another the second, another the third, and another the fourth. Similarly, there is no difference between the immediate expansion of the Lord and his secondary expansion. The Lord's names are considered in exactly the same way. Since the Lord is absolute, his name, his form, his pastimes, his paraphernalia, and his quality are all the same, and his quality all have the same potency. In the absolute world, the name Krishna is the transcendental sound representation of the Lord. There is no potential difference between his quality, name, form, etc. If we chant the name of the Lord, Hare Krishna, that has as much potency as the Lord himself. Now that is the main point. This is something that's very difficult for materialists to understand. There is no potential difference between the form of the Lord whom we worship and the form of the Lord in the temple. One should not think that one is worshiping a doll or statue of the Lord, even if others consider it to be a statue. But there is not potential difference. Because there is not potential difference, one gets the same result by worshiping the statue of the Lord or the Lord himself. This is the science of Krishna consciousness. Well, many people are not, let's say, versed in scientific things or philosophy or scientific reality. And therefore, they might not see things in the same way as a scientist does. This is because of the what you would call the influence of Maya or ignorance. So it takes time for a person in Krishna consciousness to understand the difference between something that is mundane and something that is transcendental. Well, one glaring difference is something that's mundane is subject to birth, death, old age, and disease, and something that is transcendental is not subject to birth, death, old age, and disease. Okay, so and in another way, if we chant the name of the Lord, Hare Krishna, that has as much potency as the Lord himself. There is no potential difference between the form of the Lord whom we worship and the form of the Lord in the temple. Okay, and there's no difference between the vibration of the name of the Lord and the Lord himself. So when you chant Hare Krishna, Maha Mantra, you're directly come in contact with the Lord. although you might not see the Lord, but he is present in the holy name. And also, one should not think that one is worshiping a doll or statue of the Lord, even if others consider it to be a statue. So the same thing applies when we're worshiping deity of Krishna. We understand that there's no difference between the deity of Krishna and Krishna's original form, and with as Sham Sundar. So materialistic people cannot understand this. And they think, oh, well, this is a doll or a statue of the Lord. No, it's not. It's not non-different than the Lord. If it's made according to the description of the form of the Lord, it's given in the Shastra. And after the Pran Pratishtha ceremony is performed, the Pran Pratishtha ceremony is basically inviting the Lord to come and be in the form that is made in the temple of the Lord according to Shastric evidence. So, what is a deity? A deity is a form of the Lord that follows the Shastric evidence and then is consecrated by the Pran Pratishtha ceremony. Pran Pratishtha means that we invite the Lord to come and be present in the form that has been made. It can be made out of clay, it could be made out of wood, it could even be made out of mud. But as long as it is made according to the description of the Lord in the Shastras, and then the Pran Pratishtha ceremony is performed by a genuine devotee, there's no difference whether the form is made out of mud or clay or wood or any other material substance that can be, let's say, that can be like uh, uh, it could be a picture also. It can be a clay statue also, as long as it's made according to the description of the Lord in the Shastras. And then the proper ceremony is performed, and then that form of the Lord is worshipped in the temple. So the difference between a statue and a deity, is there a difference? Yes, there is. Like, for example, if you go to the library in Bellevue, you see a statue of Gandhi. Now, it looks like Gandhi, maybe somewhat, but is it Gandhi? No, it's not. It's just a material statue, and because it's just a material statue, maybe once a year to do a little puja to that statue uh, on Gandhi's birthday, and the rest of the year they ignore it. And if you ever go to the uh, library in Bellevue, you will see a statue of Gandhi outside. And it's only a statue. And because it's outside, the birds pass stool and urine on it. And maybe once a year they clean it a little bit and do a little bit of puja. And that's it, because it's just a statue. However, the deity is not just a statue. First of all, deities are never put outside. They're always protected. So, but sometimes, like for example, they have these gigantic so-called deities of Hanuman, even uh, of sometimes Krishna. That's actually not shastric. You never leave a deity outside, open to the elements of material nature. They should always be protected. But people don't follow the regulative principles, so they will uh, make a very gigantic deity of Hanuman, or even of Buddha, or even of Krishna outside, leave it outside all year round. Even our own devotees, like if you go to the temple uh, in Vancouver, you'll see a big so-called deity of uh, of
Chaitanya Mahaprabhu.
Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Yes. Now, for many years now, they've been trying to build a big temple in Vancouver, and for some reason or other, they're not able to do it. And many years ago, I told them, as long as you have the statue of Lord of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu outside, you're not going to be able to make a temple. Yeah, yeah, because you're not supposed to have deities outside all year round and uh, subject to the elements of nature. Uh, the deities are supposed to be protected all the time. But of course, nobody listens uh, to what I say. So even up till now, they've been trying to build a new temple all these years, and they still haven't been able to do it. You know. And the question is why? It's because uh, they refuse to, uh, you know, get rid of, let's say, get rid of, but not in a disrespectful way, but get rid of that big statue that's outside and open to the elements all year round. Because you're not supposed to uh, expose a deity to the elements. Uh, like birds come and pass stool on them, and it's cold in the wintertime, it's hot in the summertime. So they're not doing anything to change that. And therefore, they're not able to get certain things done that they've been trying to do for 30, 40 years now. So let's see. I always told them, look, if you get rid of this outdoor statue of Lord Chaitanya, then you'll be able to build a temple. And they don't believe it. So, and they're still trying to build a temple. They've been trying to build a temple for the last 20, 30 years. Okay. So, um, so here in this text 32, it,
The plaster of Paris still considered a deity model.
if they perform the Pran Pratishta ceremony, yes. Yeah. Okay. Um, okay. Here it says there are different manifestations of the Lord. He is one, but he has become many. He divides himself into two different expansions. One called Kala and the other Vibhinamsa. Ordinary living entities are called Vibhinamsa expansions. And the unlimited expansions of Vishnu Tattva, such as Vamana, Govinda, Narayana, Pradumna, Vasudeva, and Ananta, are called Svamsa Kala. Swamsa refers to a direct expansion, and Kala denotes an expansion from the expansion of the original Lord. Baladeva is an expansion of Krishna. And from Baladeva, the next expansion is Sankarshan. And thus Sankarshan is Kala, but Baladeva is Svamsa. There's no difference, however, among them. This is very nicely explained in Brahma Samhita, 5th chapter, 46th verse. Departure eva hi dasantanam abhupetya. With one candle, one may light a second candle, and with the second, a third, and then a fourth. And in this way, one can light up thousands of candles, and no candle is inferior to another in distributing light. Every candle has the full potential candle power, but there is still the distinction that one candle is the first, and another the second, another the third, and another the fourth, and his secondary, another fourth. Similarly, there's no difference between the immediate expansion of the Lord and his secondary expansion. Okay, so that means that if you go to India and see the deity of Krishna, and then you come back to the United States and see another deity of Krishna being worshipped in a temple in the same way as the deity of Krishna in India is being worshipped, there's no difference. It's the same Krishna. And also, the Lord's names are considered in exactly the same way. Since the Lord is absolute, his name, his form, his pastimes, his paraphernalia, and his quality all have the same potency. So, if someone is chanting Hare Krishna in India and somebody is chanting Hare Krishna in the United States, it has the same potency because the name of the Lord is absolute. If someone is worshiping a deity of Krishna in India and someone is worshiping a deity of Krishna in the United States, as long as they're doing it according to the Shastric principles, there's no difference. Now, this is very hard for materialistic people to understand. In fact, when a devotee sees the deity of Krishna, he bows down. When a outside person comes and sees the deity, they don't give a dandavats to the deity because they think it's only a statue. Later on, when they're educated, they will start to bow down in front of the deity. But as long as they stay in ignorance, they will not bow down. They'll think this is nonsense bowing down, you know. So it requires knowledge. And how do we achieve knowledge of the Lord? It's by hearing about the Lord from genuine devotees. That applies to anything. Like, for example, you might eat something that's poisonous. That's because you're ignorant. And you don't realize it until you eat it, and then you get really sick or you could die. However, if you're educated, then you know, well, this plant is a poisonous plant, and this other plant is not poisonous because you've been educated and you know how to identify what is a poisonous plant and what is a edible plant. So in the same way, it requires education to understand the reality of the deity. It's not that everybody knows automatically what a deity is. You have to be educated. And once you're educated, then whenever you see the deity of Krishna, you'll bow down. Because now you understand that there's no difference between the statue or the deity of the Lord and the Lord himself. Mundane people don't understand that. And by the way, they don't refer, they refer to the deity as a statue, but devotees, they refer to the deity as a deity. It's not just a statue. A statue is something that's not living. Where the deity is actually living. It's actually real. It's a bona fide replica or expansion of the Lord. So only devotees can understand that. That's why here it says that.
Maharaj, you gave also an example in previous classes about even Ganesha deities should not be submerged into water.
Well, no, it's not that they shouldn't be merged in water. They shouldn't be thrown away. So what do they do? What do? They make all these little Ganesha deity, so-called deities, right? They worship it for a couple of days, then they throw it away. That's not what you do. I mean, a deity is something you have to protect, and if the deity is, let's say, deformed because it's old or something like that, there's a specific way of how to uh, put it to rest. But you just buy a little statue of Ganesha, you worship it for 10 days, and then you throw it away. They don't put it in the garbage can, but they'll go and put it in the water. That's not really. It's not really recommended to do something like that. You don't just flippantly throw away a deity.
But they made it a custom in India.
Yeah, that was started about 150 years ago. What was the name of that person? Tilak, yeah. He started that. Yeah. So it's not bona fide what he did. But yet Hindus follow it.
Big time.
Yeah. Yeah. So the one time there was a marriage, and right before the marriage started, a bird fell out of the sky and died. It fell down near the bride and groom. And then the father of the bride said, "Wait." And he slowly walked toward the dead bird and then took his hat off and slowly walked toward the dead bird and put his hat over the dead bird and said, "And now you can continue the ceremony." So this became a, a tradition. So fast forward after that, the bride and groom were married. Then later on, they had children, and then their children grew up, and then there was going to be a marriage. Uh, the, the in order to have the marriage, they needed to have a dead bird because it became tradition that in their let's say in their tradition, you need a dead bird because one of their ancestors, that's what they did, right? So people, you'd be surprised how many things start like that and then are followed over and over again in subsequent generations. But if you go back and try and understand how did it start, then you realize the whole thing is nonsense. You know, you don't need a dead bird in order to do a marriage, right? But that's some things that happen sometimes. They become, like, for example, let's let's see. Let me see if I can give you another example.
You had given another example in past, Maharaj,
Yeah.
about that their guru was always keeping a cat next to a bed before giving a class. And when he left for some preaching, then other devotees they said, first bring the cat, and they will tie the cat, and then they will preach. In the class. I remember correctly, long time back.
That is a long time back. I forgot myself.
I'm just trying to.
Yeah.
It's the example Maharaj gave. They'll again say when the wedding is about to happen.
Yeah, this one we have,
They
but the
and
cat
then they'll
one,
again go and put
you
a
probably
hat.
heard about it
Very
way time back.
I don't even remember that.
But the essence was like when the guru was not there, so they first brought the cat before starting their discourse, whoever was their
Mhm.
disciple. But they tied the cat to the well and then they gave it. Because the guru had a cat. He was always keeping his cat next to him.
But now we have, Radhika. And the guru always has to have Radhika.
That's a good one.
Yeah, there's a lot of funny things. Of course, there's a big difference between a cat and Radhika. Radhika is bona fide, the cat. Okay. Let's see if there's anything else. There's a lot more things in this purport. There's no potential difference between the form of the Lord whom we worship and the form of the Lord in the temple. One should not think that one is worshiping a doll or statue of the Lord, even if others consider it to be a statue, because there is not potential difference. One gets the same result by worshiping the statue of the Lord or the Lord himself. This is the science of Krishna consciousness. Okay, so again, what does it mean that something is a science? Well, first of all, it's something predictable. Otherwise, it wouldn't be science. Let's say, for example, if uh, uh, in the material world, there are recurring things that are predictable. Like, for example, scientists can predict what the weather is going to be in the future. And you have also the almanac. You know what an almanac is? No, I'll look it up. Almanac is a book that's printed every year and tells you more or less what the weather is going to be in the future or in the next year.
An
Oh.
annual calendar containing important dates and statistical information such as astronomical data and tide tables.
A book or publication that regularly lists current information on one or more subjects, often in tabular format and organized by calendar. Almanacs can include information such as weather forecasts, farmers' planting dates, tide tables, astronomical data,
Astronomical.
astronomical data, recipes, articles, prediction on trends in fashion, food, home, technology, and living. The word almanac
Almanac.
almanac may come from the Saxon word almanach, which means the observation of all the moons.
Of what?
Observation. So
Observation of
all the moons.
Moons.
the moons.
All the moons.
Moon?
Yes.
Yeah. So it can tell you when there's going to be a full moon, there's a new moon, etc. So it's predicting things.
As early as second millennium BCE, almanacs were used to track cycles, religious holidays, astrological events, and meteorological projections. Meteorological projections. One example of an almanac is the Old Farmer's Almanac, which is available in print and digital formats.
Yeah, you can buy it. Every year it's printed and it tells you what's going to happen in that year, what kind of weather there's going to be in the different months of the year. And people buy the almanac to have an idea of what the weather is going to be. Like if it's the beginning of the year, buy the almanac to know what the weather is going to be in May or July or in September. And usually that's what happens. Farmers often purchase the almanac, because they want to be able to plant things in the right time. So if you plant things at the right time, then they grow much better. So they use the knowledge of the almanac to do that.
The almanac.
Yeah.
So we used to have this at our home.
Yeah.
My uncles and our family member, they used to follow it
Uh-huh.
to figure out which day is more
Auspicious.
auspicious, what to do. They have timings and everything for
Yes.
every year.
Yes.
They call it in Hindi
Panchang.
Panchang. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Panchang is different from this, no? This is more
Yeah,
about when the spring starts or when the winter starts.
There's
This is all the Western version of Panchang.
Maybe.
But
I don't know.
Panchang has Rahukal.
Panchang has all moon cycle, everything.
Yeah.
And timing, precise timing.
Sure. Yeah. People buy it. And it's usually good, usually correct. Sometimes there might be, some discrepancies, but in general, it works. And the farmers buy it to know when is the best time to plant the seeds and so forth. Okay, so now, yeah, we're almost finished. So are there any questions? The main point of this purport is that if we chant the name of the Lord, Hare Krishna, that has as much potency as the Lord himself. There is no potential difference between the form of the Lord whom we worship and the form of the Lord in the temple. One should not think that one is worshiping a doll or statue of the Lord, even if others consider it to be a statue, because there is no potential difference. One gets the same result by worshiping the statue of the Lord or the Lord himself. This is the science of Krishna consciousness. So this is something that we should try to understand. Now, do you think that the deity cannot talk and cannot walk? You shouldn't think like that. There are examples in history, of the deity walking and talking, right? So it all depends on the consciousness of the devotee. So therefore, we read the Shastras to learn about the transcendental potencies of deity. Now, everything is not a deity. Like you can't, make a statue of a dog and then start worshiping it. You can do it if you want to.
Statues of cricket players
Oh, really?
and movie actors,
Yeah.
and they worship Maharaj. And they do milk abhishek.
Oh, okay.
And I heard there was a person in
Tamil
South
Nadu, Tamil
India,
Nadu.
Tamil Nadu. He
And
was
always in
worshipping-
Tamil. It's always in Tamil Nadu. Why is that?
He was worshipping some god.
That's worship.
Oh.
The statue of Abhishek Aarti.
Well, I mean, people can I mean, it's nothing new. There was this one businessman. He was making his money by selling some raw materials to the Nazis. So he started worshiping the so-called deity of Hitler. Yeah. It just shows you the idiosyncratic behavior of Indians. Look that word up, idiosyncratic. It's a big word.
How does one person get over this knowledge, Maharaj? Because they see some connection, correlation to some benefit, and then they start believing that. Because they experience that it.
Well, they're not believing in God. They believe in some false God.
Yeah.
Idiosyncratic.
Peculiar or individual.
Yeah, basically, behaviors that are habits that are peculiar or unique to an individual.
Unique. Right? Unique
Yeah,
to an
yeah,
individual.
unique to an individual.
Yeah. So the man who was exporting raw materials from India to Nazi, Nazi Europe, to Hitler's, and to Hitler, he started worshiping a so-called deity of Hitler because he made all his money by doing that. So he decided that, he should also worship the deity of Hitler. And this happened a lot. You'd be surprised. Uh, People will worship something that is completely nonsense because they're getting a material benefit from it, or they think they are. Just like, some people worship movie stars.
Mm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
think they're gods.
Big
Yeah,
time.
Rajinikanth.
that lady.
Pushpa.
Push. And there was a
I don't know who that is.
yeah, there's some
They are South Indian superstars, Maharaj.
Uh-huh.
Tamil Nadu superstar. Rajinikanth. So there are several people who installed his deity and build a temple, and then they do worship.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
particularly South India has particularly more than general South India, Tamil Nadu has this
Fandom. What do we call that?
hero worship.
Hero worship.
Mm. They're not really heroes. They're nonsense people, but
This
they're
Rajinikanth
bigger nonsense people who worship them.
nice person only.
Huh?
The person whom they worship,
Yeah.
he doesn't want them to worship, but they worship like that. But he is a person. He's a pious person. He's very spiritual person. He doesn't, even though he has a lot of money, he just donates everything, and then he's like
Right.
aloof from all the.
He doesn't
Stardom.
go after political or anything. He's grounded. Not like other people who's trying to.
But people just make.
Everyone is grounded in the sense that we're all going to be put under the ground when we die. There are a lot of anomalies. Nice word. So, anomalies. Strange things people do, and strange customs that people, adhere to. That's why we have to read the Shastras to know what is real and what is not real. Yes.
Something that deviates
Deviates.
from what is standard, normal, or expected.
Right. And one time, Prabhupada was asked, what do you think of Sai Baba? And he said, he's not standard. That summarized it really nicely. He's not standard. In other words, completely deviating and from the correct way of worshiping or acting. All right, so I think we will stop there unless there are more questions. So the main point is, if we chant the name of the Lord, Hare Krishna, that has as much potency as the Lord himself. There is no potential difference between the form of the Lord whom we worship and the form of the Lord in the temple. One should not think that one is worshiping a doll or statue of the Lord, even if others consider it to be a statue, because there is no potential difference. One gets the same result by worshiping the statue of the Lord or the Lord himself. This is the science of Krishna consciousness. Now, people say, "Oh, okay. Well, let me make a statue of my grandfather who died and worship that." And some people do things like that. Is it the same thing as what we just read? No, it's not. Why? Because you can have respect for relatives and respect for relatives that have died also, but they're not worshipable. You might have learned something from a parent or a relative that's died, so you remember them, but you don't worship them. You should only worship transcendental persons like Krishna or Balaji. Balaji is Krishna, is young Krishna. Or, but worshiping, cricket players, right? Movie stars, things like that. That's complete nonsense. Okay, we'll stop there. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. Jai Srila Prabhupada. Hare Bol. Yeah, Prabhupada once said, America is known for having a new model car every year. He said, and India is known for having a new incarnation of God every year.
Yeah. Any other questions or comments online? If not,
Maharaj, both are true.
What?
Both are true.